more. Colby Hébert here, along with Brady, who's joining us today. So we're continuing our Mardi Gras Legends.
Yeah, last time we spoke about the kind of more wealthy traditions, how those things were originated from Mobile and New Orleans and whatnot. And then we, wanted to really dig into the prominence, the equal prominence of, the more rural and kind of, I guess, impoverished even traditions. So, one of the ones that was my favorite growing up was the horse parades.
Yeah.
When I would go to my grandmother's house growing up, we would always get to catch a horse parade, kind of strolling through it. And for those who have never experienced it, it's the same thing as a parade with floats, music and throwing beads and things like that, but they're just all on horseback.
That's really cool.
And it's really unique. I think it's most prominent among the Creole culture, and a lot of people probably don't know what the roots of that is. And I think that's more fascinating, which is that, back in, even before the Louisiana Purchase, there were these Creole cowboys, these black cowboys who were enslaved. Later, even free people of color would do this. And they ran these cattle drives west of New Orleans. They were known for being really adept at agriculture and working with livestock. And so there's actually a really great argument to be made that the first cowboys were black and from Louisiana.
Wow.
The first cowboys in the West. And so they would provide food for New Orleans through all these cattle drives, and they basically go back and take care of all the mules and the horses. And as you can imagine, the care that the horses and the mules received was even greater than that of the caretakers. But this transcended through culturally, and they learned. They passed down these skills into their descendants, and now we have this tradition, and they still ride horses, they still trail ride, play their Zydeco party, and do the parades, the horse parades, and the Native American Indian, the Mardi Gras Indians.
Yeah, that's a really great, interesting story too. And it's just another one of those amazing things that we have, unique to Louisiana. It's almost funny though that we sort of put them on the other end of the spectrum, because some of those suits cost thousands of dollars. Like there was one chief years ago of the Yellow Pocahontas who said that his outfit was more than $5,000 in material and weighed over 100 pounds.
Wow.
But these stories and these origins do go way back, and we know for a fact that there were parading Indians as early as the 1850s, but so much of that was sort of covered with folklore and secrecy that probably there were some before then.
Yeah.
But it's this really interesting situation where not only is it a part celebration, but it's such a key part of the way that African Americans were able to control their celebration and also kind of create something brand and new, for themselves. But it's wonderful because there's this great system that they used to have when they would parade. And different neighborhoods would have different tribes, and they would go from area to area, and they would have different people that had different responsibilities. Like there were these spy boys that would keep an eye out for other tribes. And then you had the big chief who would oversee things.
Yeah.
And then there was a person who would carry like weapons that would be sort of ornamental or celebratory.
And we're going to continue this conversation. Right. We have a whole nother segment coming up after this, but you also have weather coming up too.
I do.
Louisiana Legends, we're continuing our conversation on kind of like those Mardi Gras legends. And Brady, you were talking about the Mardi Gras Indians.
Yeah, well, and a lot like Colby was saying before, you had a lot of African American members of the country and of our cities that were working in equestrian, horseback and cowboys. And so a lot of those members sort of got pulled into like different kind of like Wild West shows, where we also started to see some of Plains Indians demonstrations and powwows and examples of those kinds of things. And so it's kind of from that same story of being horsemen that we get into the Mardi Gras Indian tradition. But again, it's just another example of them finding a way to make their celebration their own. But up until around the mid-1900s, it could get very, very violent. Like if two tribes were to cross paths, there were often physical conflicts and altercations that would take place. There was one young man who I don't remember his name, but was quoted as saying, I'm going to mass this Mardi Gras, and I don't care if I come home dead or not, I'm going out because that's what we do. But then there was he's referred to as the big chief of chiefs. And in the 1960s, he really started to kind of turn the corner and make it more about, we are going to fight our battles with needles and threads and words. And so in a lot of cases now, you'll get these situations where when tribes cross paths, the different chiefs will insult each other or insult their regalia, all in the spirit of fun. But there is still this sort of battle between now songs and insult than there was once between sticks and guns and knives and things of that nature.
Yeah. And that kind of brings us, I feel like, to our last topic.
Well,
for
the
Mardi Gras
Courir, the Courir de Mardi Gras, it's another involving horseback. Obviously the rural traditions kind of all have that's across the board. And in the Courir de Mardi Gras, we have this tradition that goes all the way back to medieval times, at least. And you've got essentially this impoverished group of people, let's say all the way back in France, who after the winter, after Christmas, something like that, maybe famine, they would be allowed a day or a time period where they could kind of go around from maybe castle to castle, beg for different things so that they could, come together and feed on the scraps of these wealthy members of society. And then, you kind of fast forward, and now in that same spirit, we've got, the chicken, chasing the chicken, with the Mardi Gras run on Fat Tuesday, where, places like Mamou, Eunice, Church Point, Basile, you have these couriers. They run out with the Capitan, and his members that kind of keep things together, and everybody started putting on these costumes. The costumes are really great and fascinating. You've got, they mimic things like, you'll see the meter, such as mimicking like a bishop or something. And, different members of sort of hierarchy and authority, they'll kind of make fun of. You got the real pointy hats, which come from the hats that the ladies wore, the rich women, kind of way back in the day, in the medieval times. And then, what's really interesting is that the song itself, these traditions are so true and so deep. The song itself and the melody, it dates back, I think it's 700 plus years. In Northwest France, you had this prominent Celtic, it was this sort of Celtic epicenter, and there, basically is where that tune came from. It comes all the way back to that culture, where they were celebrating these feasts, these I guess you could say pagan feasts, prior to.
Well, and we had briefly mentioned on Tuesday, sort of like the importance of music, and so you see that a lot in the different couriers who have their own songs, and then the different tribes of Indians that have their own songs, about how that gets filtered and funneled, and again comes back hundreds of years to where we are now. But I think what's really interesting, and I know, but what's really interesting is that when we do a kind of a comparison between like the big royal Mardi Gras, you have all of these regular people that are pretending to be the rich and wealthy that are throwing beads out to beggars. And then you've got the exact other style where you've got people that are taking on the historic role of the beggar, who are going to the everyday people. And so it's a real interesting.
Very wealthy.
Very
wealthy people who are behind
but they are assuming that role in that costume.
We're out of time. I know we could talk about this for years, it seems like. We're going to post all of this on our website, klaf.com. We'll be right back after this.